At the Center Consulting Group, we get to work with a lot of family businesses. And one of the things we've learned is in a family business, there are lots of opportunities, there's a little complexity, and sometimes some difficult challenges. We're joined today by Mike and Heidi Sterlacci. They're a several-year client with the Center Consulting Group. They've also become really good friends of me personally and the Center. And we're so happy they're with us from Texas today to talk a bit more about family business and all those complexities, opportunities, and challenges. And we're just going to have some of that discussion together with them. So Mike and Heidi, thank you for being here. We're joined by Jay Desko, our director. And I just want to jump in and maybe get a bit of the story from Mike and Heidi. Tell us how you came to found and start CoVerica.
Well, that's an interesting, I think about the different ways I can answer that question. Probably first and foremost, when I was married for 12 years to Pam, and we got divorced, and then I decided to leave a captive insurance company to become an independent agent. I had no intention of owning a business. I had met Heidi, we dated for a couple of years, and I decided, oh, what the heck, I'm going to go ahead and quit the job I was at and start with a brand new company and a new wife. So that's how Heidi and I got started back in '92. So it was a big jump into the business world, and I realized very quickly I had no idea what I was doing and I needed a lot of help. So Heidi has always been there for me, kind of as a cheerleader and a mentor through the trials. I tell people the first 10 years was very lean, very difficult. I would come home and say, stop spending money. And she would say, what would you say?
Can I buy groceries?
And later I would tell people, I said, what kind of canned goods do we have? So then the next 10 years, we got into a rhythm of running a company. And then the third 10 years is where we are now. And it's been a great ride.
So at one point you moved from, I'll say, employee worker to owner. Tell us about how that happened for you and your family.
I was just thinking about, Jay had said being OCD or something, but joking about it. And I couldn't stand the way that they were running the company. And what was fun about it was I had been recruiting a lot of my friends to join the company, and we're selling a lot of business, having a lot of fun. And I looked at the authority figures that were owned and ran the company as obstacles, which probably wasn't fair, but that's kind of how I roll, I guess. And so started pushing things, and pretty soon realized that we could do very well as a company if we changed the way the company operated. One thing led to another, and the two patriarchs of the company finally decided to just sell out and let me buy them out, assume the debt, take care of their retirement, and grow the company.
Mike, starting a business and running a business for a number of years, we work with a lot of businesses, and talking to owners and even leaders of nonprofits, there's a burden of responsibility that comes with running the organization. How did you navigate some of the burdens of responsibility of people's lives in your hands, in a sense, and financial pressures, decisions that have to be made? How'd you navigate that?
Well, I would like to tell you I had some kind of a great plan, but actually I didn't. It's what you're talking about is a crucible of leadership, and someone explained that to me, that basically the pot that sits in a fireplace to make the soup, everybody enjoys the soup, but you're the pot that's being hit with the flames. I didn't really realize the enormity of what I was doing until I was in the thick of it, which, you look back and say, I said earlier I never really wanted to own a business, but once you do, then you realize the severity of the decisions that you make, that it can really affect people's lives. So I guess with me, I just, ready, fire, aim kind of a guy. I just jump into things and I won't give up, and I keep moving.
Heidi's laughing, yes.
and she's 32 years into it, so she's been through a lot of it. So I would say the navigation of it, when you start to realize that you're affecting people's lives, that was the ethos that really changed our philosophy of the company. And early on, I realized at some point I'm going to have to figure out how to the succession planning of this company, of what we've built. Somebody asked me once, what's it like? And I said, you love your kids and you enjoy raising your kids. I mean, for the most part, there's a lot of heartache to it. But I thought, gee, what would it be like if I had that kind of relationship with my employees? People that I work with, that I care about. We have some employees that have been around for 25, 30 years, and we raised their family. They saw our family raise, and so there's an obligation to make certain that they're taken care of, and also with my clients. A big challenge has been, now that I'm out of the company, working on the company, we lost one of my longstanding customers in 40 years. And so I realized that that transition has to take place, of the transitioning of the company. So the navigation of it is that, one, you don't have a choice. If you own the company, and failure, as the movie says, is not an option. So I would have to put myself through situations and just focus on where we're going. I tell everybody, figure out your North Star, where are you going, and then anything that doesn't support that North Star, it's a distraction, and you just stay focused.
And Heidi, for you, there are certain businesses where a spouse is actively involved, and there's others where they're not actively involved. But I have found, and I think Paul, you would have as well, they're always involved. Whether it's in a formal, structured way or an informal way. What have you found to be some of the joys and challenges of being Mike's partner as he's built this business?
You got to tell them about what agency you work for.
Which one?
The Beck and Call agency.
Oh, yeah, that's yes. So on our roster at work, with everybody's phone number, I said, with your title, some people work in commercial lines, personal lines. I said, mine is Beck and Call agency. So I was in the insurance business. I got into the insurance business right after high school. So I was familiar with it, and so that's been a big help, because when we've gone to business meetings, when we've traveled, I'm comfortable because I know what everybody's talking about. I'm not in a completely different business. I have not worked day to day. I've helped work on projects, and as I've told people, when Mike works 24/7, and I'm up with him at 10:30 at night, looking at emails or reviewing this or that, and sometimes at 4:30 in the morning. So it's been good, because I feel like we've done this together, and right, wrong, or indifferent, we don't always make the right decisions, but we've done it together, and we're satisfied with that, and I'm really thankful for that, because I know what's going on.
And along the way, you've had family members working in the business, both father, children, and so forth. So I'd love to hear you talk about, what's been the best, what have been some of the bigger complications you've faced in just having family in the business as well.
Well, it was always nice. Our kids started working in the business in high school, various data entry and jobs like that. So that was always nice. And then 2 of our 3 children work in the business now. And I mean, it's been challenging but rewarding. And I kind of know what that's like, because my dad had a furniture store when I was in high school, and we worked for him. But I know the challenges. I talk to the kids about that, because more is expected of you. You have that last name. I mean, there's certain things that come up. But overall, it's a joy, and I just think how nice it is that we're able to provide that. And when we say that we want to provide a business to leave for the next generation, that is for our children, but it's also for the people that have been working with us for years. It's a joy to watch that, especially the ones that have been there for a number of years, to see them want to stay and just continue to work there as long as they want to.
And Mike, it might be helpful to paint a picture. What is the scope and size of the company at this point?
Well, the company that I started in 1992 was already 9 years old. So when I bought into it and then basically changed the company, we're hovering around 80 full-time W-9. We have about 12 VAs, virtual assistants. We have several other companies that were all part of one company. When we decided to get serious about succession planning, we broke up all the companies. Andy Bracken, who's my, we call him the Chief Revenue Officer, he's a CFO, and he's also a CPA. He says he called it the shell game, because since each company was tangentially involved with the other company, we could move things around. Well, when we decided to get into the succession planning, each company had to stand on its own legs. So that's been a real challenge, which we have gotten through. So the scope of the company, we have 5 different companies, over 100 employees involved in it, and then we have one of our companies brings in a network of about 100 insurance agencies that feed through us. So they have anywhere from 2 to 8 or 10 employees. So all in, it's a pretty big party. I guess that answers your question. When we have parties like Christmas parties, or we had a golf tournament this last year where we had the other agencies that are master agencies, which is we're one of them. We're part of SIAA network, and they have 47 agencies that cover the whole country, with 5,000 agents that feed through it. So when somebody asks, how big are you? I says, well, it depends on how you want to look at it. So, but day in, day out, we have 80 employees on the retail side, 10 or 12 on the alliance side, and then the other companies have a couple, 2 or 3.
Okay. I'm kind of curious. I'd be interested to hear for you, Mike, as well as you, Heidi. How at this stage in life do you define success?
That's a good question, Jay. I would say that success is when you have reached a point with your faith, when you have economically or financially you're set, you know that you have enough to where you can live a quality life for the rest of your life and still have money left over, which is we're setting up a foundation for the proceeds as the company liquidates. Early on, we had listened to some. I was in a business mastermind, and a good dear friend of mine, Ralph Heffelman, says, Mike, most of the problems that most business owners do is they keep putting their money back into their main company. They don't diversify, and that's what gave me the idea for the 5 different companies. Any one of those companies could support Heidi and I. So I would say that success is when you get to a point that you can actually work on your company and think about the best interests of your family, your friends, your employees, your customers, and really work on that. It's a very fulfilling experience. So I would say that is probably when we realized that we had met that success, that no one incident can drive us out of that sense.
So all that's happening in the context of family. Can you talk a little bit more about the complications? We talked about opportunities, the joy, and so forth. What complications or challenges have presented themselves in terms of having family in the business?
I will tell you that being a product, both of us, from a divorced family, you realize that a lot of things are going to be more complex. My 2 sons are from my first marriage. We have a daughter in common. Everything that Laura Schlesinger, the psychologist, would say don't do, I did. We figured out how to make it work. So the complication was, each one of my children, when they wanted money, I'd say, well, you can work in the company. I was not a proponent of giving money to them without them having to do some kind of work. And so Chris even started very young. He was a receptionist. His son Michael was in the company as well. And certainly Samantha, same thing. That's our daughter together, who's now 26, soon to be 27. But the complication is, look, I tell everybody nepotism doesn't work. If they don't have the skill set, the worst thing you can do as a parent is put them in a job that they're going to fail at. So being able to teach them the value of having a family business that they can work in and the opportunities that they have. But at the same time, I don't want to burden them with my dream, what I want. So my oldest son is not in the company. Christopher is actually buying us out of one of our companies. And Samantha, right now, we're trying to figure out what she's going to do. But I told her to get her to trick her into the company, say, but just build up your resume. You don't have to stay here. Just build up your resume. And so that was, I don't know how many years has she been with us now?
Oh, probably 10.
Yeah. So far,
But seriously, since she graduated college.
well,
She graduated
and Center Consulting was an inspiration to that, because when I kept saying to her, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life? Which is what dads do. She says, well, I want to do what Tony and Paul do, be kind of a consultant. I said, well, that's in the human resource department, which we call people and culture. And so she's gotten serious about that. And her boyfriend said, gosh, Samantha, you don't seem to realize that you're working in a company that you can help mold the company and what you want it to be, certainly in that position in the company.
Yeah, very true. I remember the first time we talked, Mike, when you were looking for a consulting firm, and we did a Zoom call together, and it's very profound because I repeated it to other clients. When you said, "Look, I don't need help making money. I'm very good at making money." That's a profound statement that we don't hear everybody say. But what I do need help with is how to plan for the future of this business with my family and how to bring my family together. How did that play out for you and Heidi? How did your family come together in a more unified way?
That's probably the most important single thing that Center Consulting did for us. Most companies are all hyper-focused on EBITDA. And I even call it a monster, because if you look at making money in your company and that's your primary goal, you're going to get rid of a lot of people. You won't give them the necessary time. In the insurance world, if you want to be a commercial insurance agent, it's typically 3 years before you'll be in the black for the company. Personal lines is maybe a year. So very often, a lot of mergers and acquisitions take place, but every time we do a merger and acquisition, that's going to change the culture of the company if you're not careful. So you got to get in front of that. So what I realized was God has blessed us with this business that has done exceedingly well. I never wanted to own a business. I could argue I still don't. I've been working to try and succeed the company, get out of it. I didn't want to burden my children with it. But if they want to work in the business, there's nothing more gratifying than to be able to work with your kids. My daughter, who's extremely independent, by having her work in the company, I get to see her once in a while, which is kind of nice. Son Christopher is what Samantha would say about Chris is he's the daughter I never had, because he will call me and we'll talk about a lot of things. And then son Michael, when we brought him up here, he said, I'm just trying to figure out how to get back on the island. I don't know if you remember that conversation, but it was kind of fun. But I guess the point is we were looking for a way to have the company continue to thrive, to continue to be profitable, not run it to the extreme to where it's just a lifestyle business, to where it's just taking care of me and mine, but realizing the awesome opportunity and responsibility to pass it on to bless the other families that helped us build it.
We work with businesses, churches, and nonprofits around the U.S. and Canada. And we work with a number of faith-based business owners, not all, and we love serving all of them. You have mentioned, and Heidi, you've mentioned in our conversations, your Christian faith. How has that played out as a business owner? How do you view your business through the grid of your Christian faith?
That's another good question that I've had a lot of fun with, I guess. I can look back and say it was fun. But I have always felt that when Jesus said, feed my sheep, he wasn't just talking about saving souls. I have been given a gift that I now realize is a gift, that I can make money. And yes, making money is, it's heresy to some people, but it's extremely easy. I used to, when I first started in sales, I said, all I have to do is, it's kind of like the gentleman that was being attacked by bears were coming after him and his buddy, and he says, why are you putting on your sneakers? He says, I just have to outrun you. Well, that's kind of my philosophy on business. All I have to do is be more likable or more approachable than the current person that you're buying your insurance from. So it's not the 1 in 10 and got to have 100 prospects to have 10 people to talk to get one close. With me, it was a 50-50 proposition. All I got to figure out is how do I dislodge your current agent. So I guess the best way to address it is that, okay, so now I have this company. We have been so blessed to have enough money to we're actually setting up a foundation. We hired the same people, Morrison Forrester, that set up Patagonia's succession plan to get the paperwork done to make certain that we don't get in trouble with the IRS or everything else, how to set these things up in the foundation. But clearly, the company meant so much more to me. It's an opportunity for my family. It's an opportunity for our employees. It's an opportunity for our long-term clients that we become friends with. We've traveled with some of our clients to Europe, for example, and they're good friends. And so to leave this in the hands of somebody that understands our core values and the ethos of who we are and what we believe in. So we had to find somebody that kind of understood that also understood the money side of it, because you got to make money. I mean, I love the story of the talents.
Christian aspect of
The Christian aspect is so interwoven with us. I don't know how to separate it. It is, there's 66 books. There's a reason why there's 66 books. And you can't just pull out, you could just say, well, God wins and everybody loses. But no, there's a lot of things that you can enter into the ethos of our company. So I don't know how to separate it, and I've always said that. So when we interviewed I was Anglican, I'm still Anglican. I was born and raised Catholic, became Anglican. When we were interviewing, I was on the vestry, and when we were interviewing who was going to succeed David Roseberry as the rector of the church, I said from the very beginning, churches need to understand how to get back to supporting the leaders and businesses and the business owners. Because not only do we help raise money for the churches, but I liken back, there were 12 tribes. 11 of them were kings. Only one of them was a Levite priest. What was the job of the Levite priest? Was to mentor and teach the kings what they needed to do and how they needed to support the different facilities. Well, I'm a king. So so going all the way back to the Old Testament, I don't know how to separate it. And so whenever I get into any kind of a compromised situation, I have scripture that I can refer to. Now, I have dear friends, Paul being one of them, that are spiritual mentors that I can talk to. What about this? What do you think about this? So it helps us, guide us in times when we have to sue people or in situations. We're in the insurance business, so we deal with a lot of lawsuits. We're supporting the legal profession. So all the decisions of the crucible of leadership, I couldn't do it without faith.
Well, thank you for not separating it, because sometimes there's that bifurcation. I'm running a good business, but I'm a Christian on Sunday, and I've watched you now. I see you living it out, and in the lives of not just your family, but your companies. How have you prepared yourselves? We're now in this season, life has seasons of transition, succession, and how have you prepared yourselves, your family, your company for that succession process?
I think God shows off a lot. And so when there is a need, I don't believe in miracles, I look for them. And we started going to, we go to our Anglican church, and we also go to Chuck Swindoll's church at Stonebriar. And Chuck is going to turn 90, and he is doing his last 5 sermons. And he went to DTS, Dallas Theological Seminary. He was a professor there. He very involved. He was chancellor. And so basically the campus is DTS North, I guess I would call it. But watching him go through his succession planning has been just so, he's talking to me.
Yes.
And I listen to what he says and how he says it, and how he one time several months ago, he was talking about how much he loves his wife, Cynthia, but he has to hold everything loosely. And as he's gotten older, he's gotten a greater and greater dependence on Christ. Mm-hmm. And so it's talking to me. It's that this is, I think it's Havel, which is the vapor, in Ecclesiastes, how Solomon at the very end figures out this is all meaningless. So I look at it and say, okay, God has blessed us with this business. We have been successful. We're financially comfortable. At 70, I have excellent health, as does my wife. So we're seeing more of the true meaning of life and how it's played out through our business and how we can use our business to positively influence others. One of the things that you said triggered a memory that one of our employees, we hired a young lady who is of a different faith. And she says, this Mike, he's always talking about, parables and all this other stuff in business. And she says, oh, don't worry about that. You don't have to believe any of that stuff. That's just his rule book. And I tell people, if you ever see me do anything that is in conflict with let's talk about it, of how we came to those decisions. Because there are times you have to take actions to sue people or settle things. There's a point at which you don't fight things for principle, because that's really not the point. What is the biggest effect that you can have that aligns with your values?
Excellent. I'm kind of curious, Mike, and I'd like both of you to answer this if you can. From your perspective, Mike, what is one word or one piece of advice you give to business owners sitting into the seat like you're sitting, maybe further along in their business and thinking about what next and how to navigate succession? What's one piece of advice you'd give them?
Well, we do podcasts in our company, and we're concluding we're going to have 20 of them. We just finished the 19th, and that same question was asked of me, and the answer is pretty simple. You're not as important as you think you are.
Now, let me reverse the question. What would you say to the young version of Mike in the first 10 years of business ownership?
Why don't you do that one, Heidi? You have any idea what you would say going back 32 years?
For the young Mike running a business, I mean, you just kept working, perseverance. He didn't really have a plan except it wasn't going to fail.
Perseverance is such
we
a
have
key
a
word,
problem.
isn't it?
Yes.
I call it.
We have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. Whatever it was, you're just going to have to figure out how to keep going.
I call it leaning into God's left hook. If I were to, and I do, I advise this to Chris, my son Chris, who's now in that position. He's now 36. I was 38 when I started this whole process. And I advise him, I said, as tough as the problems are that you're facing, day in, day out, get used to the fact that it's the journey. You'll solve a problem only to have it replaced with another one.
Heidi, what words would you give to a spouse? Doesn't matter. Maybe it's a female-owned company and you're giving words to the husband, but somebody who's partnered but not operationally involved all the time. Business affects everybody.
Sure.
What words would you give?
Well, I've kind of always thought, what's your legacy? Determine what your legacy is going to be. And that's been very important to us. What is it going to be? As we've said, to pass on the wisdom to the next generation. But they don't want to hear it sometimes. But it's really refreshing when we have young people come to us, and it's not our kids sometimes, but they come to us and look at us as mentors. How did you do it? They ask these questions.
If I can, you should say what you advise other friends of yours, women, in their marriages, because that's been a huge help for me.
Okay. So early on, this was in a church setting, a mom-to-mom group. I told the ladies, because I had the older kids and then a 3-year-old. So I was kind of in the middle. I had been past the diaper stage. And I just told the women, I said, figure out what is important to your husband and support him in that. Some husbands, they want a nice meal. And thank goodness that wasn't Mike. I could cook in the crock pot and stuff, but I wasn't the gourmet cook. But what he did like was a clean house when he came home. But everybody's different. So how can you support your husband, your partner, if it's the woman that runs the business, but vice versa? How can you best support your partner and just do that? It makes a world of difference because he did the same for me. Even though I wasn't working in the business, he was supportive of me. And I mean, we have just flourished doing that. And it's not that hard. It's really not that difficult.
We sometimes make it harder than it needs to be, you know.
And you said, something you said earlier related to Mike and the advice to a younger person probably is very relevant to the partner. And that is resilience. It's the same, right? It's tough at times. I mean, that first 10 years, it was hard. You're in the building phase, lots of risks, stress, lots of hours. And what we see sometimes is there are some leaders who want the benefits of the third decade, but they want it in the first decade.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't really work that way.
And we've had that conversation with our son, Chris. He would get frustrated at first. I said, you can't have 30 years worth of wisdom and mistakes when you're in your first few years. You just have to live that out.
Yeah. Well, I want to say as we wrap this up, Paul, you and Tony have done such a great job partnering with Mike and Heidi and their family in really being coaches to them. And I want to commend you, Mike, and Heidi as well, that it only works when you want input. Proverbs 15 says there's wisdom in counsel, and you sought counsel, and not only did you seek it, you listened to it. And that really has been blessed in a lot of ways in the stage of life you're in now, and the stage of the business, and the stage of the family. So we commend you for that, and we commend you for what your vision is for the future, including your philanthropic vision of how do you bless others forward with that. So thank you. The Center Consulting Group is here as partners with business owners and family-owned businesses, churches, nonprofits. We are here to come alongside and provide guidance, counsel, encouragement, and wisdom.